The Apriorian Church's revolutionary mandate. Apriorian has a mandate to prosecute a revolution and a charter that permits and indeed, obligates it, to wage war on nature, that is on human nature, our physical nature. Naturally, the world considers this mandate insane, otherwise the world would not fight against it. There are two sides to this conflict, the defenders of nature and the Apriorian revolutionists. The defenders of natural man have been in power for 6,000 years. They took power after the Pyrrhic victory in Eden. Mankind won his freedom, but it was a freedom that alienated him from God and from logical reason. Outside of Eden, man took on the form of nature. In nature there is the freedom of the jungle. In Eden God owned everything, and while mankind had the right to use what God provided, they had no rights because they lacked ownership. In Eden Adam had to corrupt the system that was in place to acquire freedom. Man had permission to use what he wanted in the garden, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil represented a perfect system. Eating of its fruits represent an insurrection, a violent interference in the perfect system created by God. Adam and Eve were ejected from Eden because the perfect system was now usurped by man for man's own ends. One cannot be in a logical system if one is operating in ad hoc ways. If we have corrupted perfection, what have we but a system that is evil? It is evil simply because it is not perfect. Only perfection is not evil. Evil is evil simply because it is opposed to perfection. Now we have a situation in which this usurpation of God is an ongoing process. We call it the natural world. What it is the law of nature competing against the knowledge of God. This issue is perfectly encapsulated by the tree of knowledge. Eating of the fruit caused the birth of a new system, or more accurately, damage to the system created by God. Mankind was created in the image of God. His world was created logically, morally, and analytically perfect. The true knowledge of good and evil is a system. It is information, so it is analytical. It was information codified into a grammar using symbols and communicated to us. The ability to understand these symbols was created as part of our identity. But man wanted the benefits without the work. He did not wish to do what it takes to achieve spiritual maturity, he wanted the benefits without doing the work. And this is still what erodes the system today. Physical earth undergoes entropy because it is not being generated by God's word. This system is entropic because it is separated from God. Over the generations much has been said about the purpose of man. Though many deny mankind has a purpose. To have a purpose would mean a purpose giver, or a designer. We would have had to be designed to achieve a purpose, and the system we are in would have had to be designed so as to make the fulfillment of the mission possible. The question perhaps is not if we have a mission, but how can we not have a mission? If there is not a hierarchy of ideals, then how can we even have reason? Animals do fine focused on surviving. If they get through the day, and are alive, they have succeeded. If they get through the year having birthed young, they have succeeded. Mankind cannot live like this. What is man, dies, if all we do is succeed in the way animals understand success. The purpose of man must exist and strived for, if humanity is to retain his humanity. Those who say mankind has no mission or purpose, or who claim there is no God, have condemned mankind to a life of animalism simplicity. We must strive for a metaphysical perfection generally if we are to be able to make particular decisions, rationally. If we understand that mankind has a purpose and that this purpose is realized through the agency of each person's choices, then we ought to understand the dysfunctionality, the preemptive corruption, of Adam eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is tantamount to eliminating or negating the purpose of man. The knowledge of good and evil is the system under which we achieve our purpose. This is the fruit. By eating the fruit one man takes it upon himself to represent the purpose of all humans. This is the de facto establishment of the state. This was first established as tribal and extended family groupings. But Nimrod pushed the boundaries outward, divorcing authority from its familial roots to set up the first official kingdom. The state represents the purpose of its subjects. This is a usurpation of the true purpose of man. The true purpose resides in us. But if we have a purpose, and how can we not? If the state can direct us towards its end, there still must be an end, or purpose. The question then can be asked, is the end that the state provides, the bona fide purpose of man? If not, if the state creates a false purpose, is not a revolution required? If I have a purpose and I am given another purpose, contrary to the first and bona fide purpose, do I not have an obligation to hold fast to the good and let loose the false? The question we also need to ask is if the world is created for a purpose and I aligned with a purpose different from the purpose of the rest of creation, then I am necessarily at war with creation and its creator. Surely if the world has a purpose and I have a role to play in the fulfillment of this purpose, then my obligation is to that purpose. But what is this purpose? What else can it be but to mature? We cannot remain stagnant nor simply decline. We are required to grow. All creatures have at least one path to growth, that is the physical path. We all grow bigger and older. Physically, all creatures mature. But there is nothing personal about this, nor is it of any special significance. Physical growth and maturity is simply part of the great cycle of life. But humans are different from the animals, and we must progress beyond the boundaries of physical maturity. Humans were created and designed to spiritually mature. In the beginning our spiritual and physical natures are aligned. As we physically mature, our physical side and our spiritual side will diverge. We may grow old physically more than we do spiritually, or the opposite. But maturity is not so much a purpose as a means to an end. Our purpose is to grow the church. But as there is physical maturity and spiritual maturity, there is a physical church and a spiritual one. The physical church is buildings and people. The physical church grows in physical ways. More and bigger churches are built. More people attend. But these indices say nothing about the maturity of the church. But the Bible clearly lays out the recipe for church growth. Matthew 18 verses 18 to 20 Verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching any thing that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. The church is built by binding. This is a two-way process of sloughing off those who are at odds with the church and binding to those who agree with your Christianity. However, we ought to see this as consisting of something more than mere physical coexistence. When we disagree, we create friction or what is called entropy. However, look at this from another angle. Humans are not animals, and we cannot live as animals. The physical world is adequate for animals. They have a simple life cycle they follow. Humans find little on the earth that is suitable for their use. We cannot even live out in the elements. We need clothes and shelter, or we are not likely to live very long. There are only 2 options. We can each do what needs doing for ourselves, or we can specialize. All of humanity's problems are logical problems. Humans are adept at setting aside logic for political ends. If we all do what needs doing for ourselves, this is called subsistence cultures. No one is skilled enough or hard-working enough to generate a civilized life by his own hands. Those who seek self-sufficiency are always in or close to destitution. The only possible option for a race that wants to live well is specialization. All progress is due to increased levels of specialization. The implementation of robots and AI increases the intensity of specialization to a whole new level. But this is not some miracle or magical process. The enhancement of civilization is merely a continuation of moral living. We have already talked about having a purpose and this conflicting with the state and its purpose. However, once again it would be wrong to assume this is all about divine law and the need to follow it. Doing right or following the knowledge of the tree of good and evil is all about logic. Our purpose is logical. We need to follow it. We need to follow our purpose or mission in life because everything else is illogical and suicidal. But that is that purpose. In one context our purpose is to build the church, in another it is to add value to the things of God. We could also say our purpose is to be logical and not insane. But let's tie this to the issue of specialization and its performance when compared to the methods of subsistence agriculture. Specialization works because it utilizes human labor in the best possible way. Specialization makes our labor more efficient. This is logically necessary if we are to retain our humanity, never mind develop advanced civilizations. Our mission is then simply do what has to be done, what must be done, to attain to a civilized life. Otherwise, we are in danger of stagnating if not exterminating ourselves. Our purpose is to add value to the things of God. But this will only be done if we understand and respect the nature of ownership. God owns the natural world. If we can accept that, then we ought to understand the world does not exist to be stripped of all of its value without anything being given back. No group has a license to live off of the land. That is not how it works. We are not owed a living. We are not to just reap, we must also sow. This is what so many do not grasp. If we are to sow in the sense of adding value to assets, there are two features to this. There is the work we do to add value, but there is also the quality of the work done. The hermit that lives alone and does everything himself, is indeed a noble figure, but in the larger scheme of things, he is a fool. This is why business is important to progress. The businessman specializes in a formal and significant way. This permits him to hire other businesses to do the other things which need to be done. Everyone does what he does best and hires others to do the rest. A business done right, pays for all inputs and charges for all outputs. The balance is the equity the business creates. This is the free market, or a unit of the free market. If we expand this model through the economy, the state will no longer exist, neither will any of the 10 great evils. They are all a product of the state. That is, unemployment, debt, poverty, inflation, pollution, waste, taxation, homelessness, war, and crime would not exist, were the state replaced by the free market. When Adam ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, this was a symbolic act in which the logical output of God's system was exploited by man for his own ends. In this act Adam created parasitism. In this act Adam created the groundwork on which the empire of Nimrod would be established. This using power to avoid the need to work, has gone on since the garden. Instead of adding to the wealth of the world, the freeloader subtracts from it. This is all one needs to know to understand good and evil. There are two groups. One is spiritually mature, the other spiritually immature. The mature adds value, the immature subtracts wealth from what the mature produce. The spiritually immature cannot do this unaided. They need the state to lend its muscle to the expropriation. Without the state no large-scale freeloading could happen, which means this physical system would not have been developed to the degree it has. The world looks real, but it is negative, built on entropy in a negative instance of the analytically positive real world. The physical world is almost akin to time running in reverse, because everything fine and good is eroding and rotting away. Eventually the erosion will collapse, and God will create a new heaven and a new earth not prone to this decay, because all of the freeloaders will be no more. The church is a revolutionary structure, because it seeks to go against the trends of this world system and reverse all of the damage being done to what God created. The spiritual war exemplifies our purpose, and the revolution exemplifies the reality of the church. We cannot add value or build the church without fighting parasitism and spiritual immaturity. We cannot stop parasitism without eliminating the state. But to eliminate the state we have to mature spiritually. Our purpose is revolutionary. The mandate is in our faith. We cannot be Christian unless we destroy the freeloading, first in ourselves and in the way we live, and then in the state.